We have Grandmaster Anish Giri on the screen. He's going to take on the world champion Domaraju Gukesh and a handshake there. This game has been played a couple of months ago when Anish had not yet won the FIDE Grand Swiss and booked a spot in the candidates. Well, we could very well see a world championship match between the two if Anish manages to win the candidates. But for now, this game is going to be very exciting because it's blitz chess, 5 minutes plus 2 seconds increment. Anish likes and enjoys blitz chess. He is well known as a very decent blitz player. Gukesh is someone who's trying to get better at this format. The classical games between these two have been epic for sure, especially in Vaikanze, where Anish managed to beat Gukesh in 2023, 24, and then in 25 as well. Gukesh's first game after becoming the world champion was against Anish, and he was completely lost, but in the end, Gukesh managed to outwit Anish and win that game. So both of them always fight it out against each other, and it will be very exciting to see what happens here today. The players are ready. 5 minutes plus 2 seconds increment, a handshake, and off we go. Knight comes out to f3, knight f6. Gukesh goes g3, his favorite reti. Bishop g2, knight comes out to c6, and now we have the English opening. Takes, knight d5. Anish going for this very interesting Marokzi bind setup with e5. a3, he goes e6. Note that e5 b4 is a very risky gambit, so maybe Anish tried to avoid it with e6. Castles, bishop to e7 played here, and this looks like a very solid weapon. The only problem here is, of course, the bishop on c8 is a bit blocked, but you can go b6, bb7 very soon. d3, castles here by black. And now Gukesh could very well play bishop e3. He goes bishop f4, one step ahead, telling Anish that you didn't push e5, so I get my square for the bishop, putting pressure here. And the thing is, if you go b6, then knight e5 would be pretty strong. Takes, and instead of taking here, bishop a8 and then bishop e5. So knight to d5 played by Anish, attacking the bishop. Gukesh can come back bd2 and looks like a fine move. But he takes on d5. Pawn takes on d5. And now brings his rook to c1, putting pressure on the c5 pawn. The bishop comes up to e6. And already black's position looks really nice with these two central pawns, space, pieces well positioned. Gukesh will have to find some counterplay because d4 he would like to play, but it could very well be met with c4. That's the reason why he goes knight e5, trying to trade off few more pieces, and I think Anish has no reason to decline the trade. He goes rook c8, and now maybe after takes, d4 could be possible because after c4 you have e4. And this rook on c6 could be a bit shaky because after takes, bishop d5. Maybe this is playable. So, but I guess d4 makes sense. Although Gukesh doesn't like it, he goes queen a4, putting pressure on the a7 pawn after knight takes c6. That is his idea. And Anish thinking hard here. Knight to d4, attacking the e2 pawn could be an option. And well, the other ideas could be queen b6 perhaps. He goes a6, a very calm move. 4 minutes to Anish, 3 minutes 49 seconds for Gukesh. Somehow Gukesh is that kind of player who always likes to do something active, and he goes for b4. But maybe now Anish has this very nice move, b5. And yes, he's going towards the pawn, he pushes it. and with this he could very well push c4 on the next move. Now notice that if you went c4 directly after d takes c4, you can't take back with the pawn as the rook is hanging. So in a way, getting the move b5 and c4 is going to do great for Anish. Maybe the queen has to move back to d1 there, or maybe queen c2, queen b3. Getting into the line of the bishop doesn't seem like a good idea here. Gukesh comes back, queen to c2, and it's time to push the pawn forward. c4. Let's go, Anish. Pawn to c4 seems like a good move here. He's thinking, trying to completely zone in here, because even this position with rook c8 take, bishop takes c5 is very good for black, putting pressure on f2, putting pressure on a3. So actually it's a very good question, should you go c4 or not? And I believe Anish is also thinking of some other options here. Maybe queen d7 with the idea of doubling down the c file could also be on his mind. He goes queen d7. Oh, he's playing it. He's like, okay, Gukesh, if you take here, yes, my pawn structure gets a bit ruined. I'll have an isolated pawn, but on the other hand, your a3 pawn will be perpetually weak. Gukesh comes back, bishop to e3. And he's attacking the pawn on c5. Maybe it makes sense to now push c4. Rook f c8 also possible. c4 takes, and now rook takes c4. He takes with the rook. And the thing to note here is that queen d2 might be an important move here. He goes queen d3, rook comes to c8, and d4 is a move that white would not like. Black really wants to get that move in, and if he gets it, I think he would be clearly for choice. Gukesh is building up the pressure on the d5 pawn. The problem is, I don't think you can win the pawn. There's too much pressure on c1 to be able to win material here. And now Anish takes his time at this point. Maybe that is the move bishop to f6, putting even more pressure on d4. But he has to calculate the proper consequences of bd5. It doesn't really work because of rook c1. He does play bishop. No, he doesn't play bishop f6. He goes h6. Aha. A useful move, taking away back rank issues. Rook takes rook. B takes c4, taken. Queen goes to c3. But that seems like an error. Queen a4 is very strong. He finds it. He had to go here queen c2 to stop queen a4. But the moment he goes here, now attacking the rook. But what's the big deal, you may ask? Well, the big deal is that bishop is coming in next move. a3 pawn is weak. There are too many problems to worry about. If the queen moves away from the c3 square, the black pawn starts to rush down. For example, let's say rook c1 here, bishop f6, bishop d4, bishop takes, queen takes, and now queen a3 with the idea of c3, c2. And you can see Gukesh there understanding the repercussions. Sometimes you make a move in a hurry and then you kind of regret it because the opponent makes this move queen a4, and Gukesh would be thinking, I could have easily fixed it if I would have played my queen to c2. But there's no time to regret and repent. You have to figure out what's the next best option here. Is it rook a1, to defend the a3 pawn? Because then after bishop f6, bishop d4, bishop takes, queen takes, it looks like white is okay. But c3 is exactly what I was talking about. The pawn starts rolling. There's c2 coming in, c1, a3 is again weak. You can't control all of it. Goes queen c1 and a5. What a nice move here by Anish. He was ready with his move. Bishop takes pawn, but this is a blunder now. Can you find it? Black to play and win. And it is very simple. Rook d8, pinning and winning. Gukesh is so upset there. He hadn't seen that move. He's simply losing material here. Queen takes c4 would have been nice, but the rook on d1 is hanging. Otherwise, you can't move the bishop because the attack on d1 from the rook and the queen is very strong. And you could see how Gukesh just looked at the side and he was very upset. Anish knows that he's going to beat the world champion here. Rook to d4. And now both moves, bishop takes d5, also rook takes d5, both look great. Anish just making sure he has everything well planned out, well analyzed. Rook takes d5. He takes the pawn and now a very nice move, queen d1, and he resigns here. What a nice finish that was. Just have a look at this. Queen d1 check. If king g2, by the way, if you take here, I take and you lose the queen. But if king g2 in this position, then bishop to h3 is game over, as after king h3, queen f1, king g4, f5, king h5, and now king h7 with a mate coming in. Even though you take this, g6 is a checkmate. A beautiful finish awaited in that game and a well-earned victory for Anish Giri.